Chapter 15. Know who you are. Quiet your emotions. Sun Tzu said, "If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will yield in every battle." My guess, though, would be that if he had to choose between understanding the enemy or understanding ourselves, he would choose understanding ourselves first. Lao Tzu said, "Our ability to understand others is called wisdom, but that is a relatively easy feat. Our ability to understand ourselves so that we know how to act on our own strengths and limitations is something that people find many times more difficult. Few of us spend enough time to figure out exactly what makes us tick. We're usually too preoccupied with trying to survive rather than trying to figure out what drives us. But without knowing who we are, we will never build the foundations for success. We'll keep reacting to events and surrender to whatever we feel in the moment, which is probably why there seem to be limitless amounts of hatred and anger in the world today. Sun Tzu believed that people usually got angry only because of incompetence. People become angry when they're faced with a problem that they don't know how to solve. Anger is a natural defense mechanism to uncertainty. At the end of the day, emotions are fickle. We might feel happy today, but tomorrow this could turn around completely at any time, without anyone, including us, knowing why. How can we expect our followers to be level-headed if we're always overreacting to events? Pema Chodron, who writes frequently about modern Buddhism and meditation, says that people often expect a feeling of peace or serenity when they meditate. But the reality is quite the opposite. Instead of calm, people feel agitated and annoyed with themselves when they meditate. They start to see all the flaws in their personality, and they feel uncomfortable about who they are and what they're seeing. Chodron explains that it's all part of the process. Only when we're in a state of quiet can we peer deeper into what's happening around us. Before meditation, it's like we're trying to peer into a lake where the water is moving fast with a lot of ripples on the surface. We can't see a thing. We can see what's happening on the surface of the lake, but not what's inside of it. But when the water becomes still, we can see through the surface straight to the bottom. And yes, she says, the bottom is probably lined with old shoes and discarded bicycles. Don't get me wrong. Sun Tzu wasn't suggesting that we become robots devoid of emotions and feeling. He was only suggesting that we find an appropriate outlet for our emotions so that we could maintain focus on the problems at hand. We have to be cautious when we're feeling emotionally overwhelmed. We shouldn't act rashly because we're angry, because a dead soldier won't come back to life and a fallen dynasty cannot be revived. In classic Sun Tzu fashion, he suggests that emotions should be used to serve a purpose. For example, we could use our emotions to help get our message across or to influence the people around us. If you destroyed a chair and everyone around you became fearful of what you might do afterwards, then maybe you should get angry. It might solve your problems. But if people were likely to ignore your primal display of emotion, then maybe you should have left the chair alone, because it's not going to help the situation. Think about it. What if people started to make fun of you? What would you do then? Anyway, the point is, with calmness comes clarity. When we're emotionally calm, we create the space to think and to ask the right questions, letting us diagnose situations with more accuracy. We feel more prepared to take charge and ownership of the situation. That's important because usually what happens is whenever something goes wrong, we look for someone else to blame. We have an innate desire to reduce the attention on us and to divert the focus to other people. When God told Adam not to eat the forbidden fruit from the tree, Adam blamed it on Eve. She told him to do it. Sun Tzu wanted his leaders to take responsibility for all consequences, irrespective of whether they were to blame. Leaders had to have the willingness to step up and take ultimate responsibility for the outcome. It didn't matter whose fault it was, the buck stopped with them. True leadership was taking accountability for the actions of the people who placed their lives in your hands. The more we carried the burden for others, the more they would see us as their leader. When a battle is lost, we can't blame the soldiers for not carrying out instructions correctly, because it's always the responsibility of the general to make sure that the instructions were clear and executable. There's no such thing as a defeated soldier, only a defeated general. Taking care of our emotional health is as important as the attention we give to our physical bodies. We need to find a healthy and productive means to appropriately express our feelings rather than to control, ignore, or suppress them, which is what people normally do. While we shouldn't let our cravings and longings grow unchecked and rampant, trying to oppress everything will only create imbalance. We need to find the right equilibrium between discipline and desire, Confucius said. We need a balance between what we feel in our hearts and how we display our emotions of happiness, anger, sadness, and joy to others. He said that we should never let the unpleasantness of our day allow us to be irritable and easily angered because we would be increasing our chances of making a mistake. This reinforces the notion that a person's intelligence is judged by their ability to understand and control their feelings, not their level of education. Remaining emotionally balanced is the hardest to do when something we value is at risk. We can live without most things, but we all have vices that will cause us to lose control. For instance, it's all too common to overpay for a house because we've fallen in love with it. And it's not always something that makes us unstable. It can also be someone. The end of the Ming dynasty was arguably brought about because the emperor had fallen in love with one of his general's mistresses. Although in those days it was supposedly the emperor's right to possess literally everything under heaven, General Wusangui was, understandably, enraged when the emperor forced Wusangui's mistress to follow him. Wusangui plotted his revenge and made a secret pact with the enemy Manchurians. In 1642, while China was at war against the Manchurians, Wusangui, as commander of one of the last remaining strongholds, opened the gates of the city to the enemy without contest. Thereafter, the Manchurians took over control and established the Qing dynasty, which ruled over China for the next 268 years. Wusangui was rewarded with the title Pingzi Wang, the king who pacifies the West. Zhang Liang's patience. Zhang Liang, as one of the three heroes of the early Han dynasty, was a brilliant strategist and military mind who helped Liu Bang establish the Han dynasty. Liu Bang often praised him as being so capable that he was able to change the outcomes of a war from a distance. Zhang Liang's childhood, however, wasn't as glorious. His father was a senior official of a dynasty that was decimated by the Qin dynasty. The war left his father dead and his family in pieces. Zhang Liang was filled with such intense hatred and thirst for revenge that he tried to assassinate the Qin emperor with a heavy mallet. This guy had style, but during his assassination attempt, he couldn't tell which carriage the emperor was sitting in and attacked the wrong one. After the failed attempt, he changed his name and went into hiding. One day, he came across a bridge where an old man was sitting. The old man saw Zhang Liang and called out to him, "Young man, help me retrieve my shoe. It has fallen down to the side of the river." Zhang Liang thought, "Who does this old man think he is? Who is he to command me?" But he decided he would help the man because the man looked quite frail. Zhang Liang climbed down to the side of the river and picked up the shoe. He tried to give the shoe back to the old man, but the old man snapped at him, "Put the shoe on my foot!" Zhang Liang was taken aback by his rudeness and began to get quite angry. But again, after pausing for a moment, Zhang Liang decided to help him. The old man was pleased. "I want to thank you. Come back in 5 days to find me here at the bridge and I will give you a book as a gift." Zhang Liang was curious about the book he was going to receive and followed along. The next day, he came to find the man at the bridge, but when he arrived, the old man was already sitting there. "Why are you so late?" he yelled. "You have made an old man wait so long for you. Come back in another 5 days as punishment." The next time, Zhang Liang didn't want to make any mistakes. While the sky was still dark, he set out for the bridge. Let's see who is earlier than who this time. Sure enough, when he got to the bridge, the old man was nowhere to be seen. He sat and he waited. The old man finally arrived and gave him the book as promised. "You can become the tutor of a ruler after reading this book," he told him. The book Zhang Liang received was The Art of War by Tai Gong. Zhang Liang studied the book for 10 years before venturing out to help Liu Bang establish the Han dynasty. Know when to be weak and when to be strong. Imagine that you came across two people fighting and one of them was crying. How would you feel? My guess is that you would probably feel sympathy for the person that was crying. You would probably assume that they've been mistreated. It may not be true, they might have been the instigator of the incident, but it's in our nature to be empathetic toward the weak. We naturally want to protect them. I've come across many different types of people in my line of work, and I can honestly say that no type of person scares me more than someone who shows no emotion. When someone is visibly angry or happy, I feel like I know how to respond. But when someone refuses to react, I'm clueless about what they're thinking. I'm sure you know these people. People who seem to be calm when the world is crumbling around them. Or people with the ability to at least appear calm when they're utterly devastated on the inside. I'm sure you also know people who seem a little ditzy, when in reality you know they have a perfect handle over the situation. I'm uncomfortable with both of these types, but on the other hand I also admire them, because the ability to mask our emotions is one of the most powerful skills in life. Your ego will want you to express yourself. It feels good to show how you're feeling. However, if we're visibly expressing all ranges of emotions on our faces, we give up control to others. We're inviting them to add to the chaos that we're already feeling. If we want to protect ourselves, Sun Tzu believed, we shouldn't reactively show what we're thinking and feeling on the inside. Even when we feel like we're on the edge of ruin, we can't show it. Even when we're genuinely confused and angry, we can't let others see. In fact, we have to double our efforts to hide it. Our emotions are a valuable source of information, and we want to make sure we're only showing people the information we want to give. Don't for 1 second think that hiding your emotions amounts to any form of dishonor. We're merely keeping our options open for adapting to the situation. We don't have to show the first instinctual reaction that we feel. Now, Sun Tzu isn't telling you to always be unemotional, he is telling you to be flexible. Bamboo is strong because it bends. Wood that is rigid is brittle and breaks easily. Someone who is flexible is someone who can show both strength and weakness. Paradoxically, this is what makes them brave. Compare this to someone who only knows how to express one emotion, which is usually anger. Who do you think is weaker? People who tend to look strong and brave on the outside are usually covering how they feel on the inside. Showing weakness requires courage because it goes against human nature. Only those who are truly strong will be courageous enough to show their vulnerability and weaknesses to the world. And their source of confidence comes from knowing where their true strengths and weaknesses lie. I understand that this can be confusing. Are we supposed to act weak or strong? Well, it depends on the situation. If other people are likely to reject our display of strength, then we have to act weak in front of them. But if it's someone who's likely to take advantage of our weakness, then we must be strong. Strength and weakness are relative, so we need to know when to display which. It's not something that is dependent on how we're feeling at the time. It's about matching our behavior to the needs of the situation and our goals as a way of influence. Keokayo cries in front of Guan Yu. After Keokayo's defeat at the Battle of Red Cliffs, he fled north, but was caught by Guan Yu. Although now an enemy, Guan Yu was once a soldier under Keokayo's command, where Keokayo gave him significant power and handsome rewards. But Guan Yu later left Keokayo to fight alongside his brother Liu Bei, returning all the power and gold he was given. While retreating, Keokayo thought to himself, surely this must be the end. There is no hope for escape now. But then a soldier said to him, "You know, Guan Yu, he is a strong and brave person, and he prides himself on being a courageous soldier. For us to escape, you must pretend to be weak and not worthy of him." Keokayo immediately turned his soldiers around and ran toward Guan Yu, feigning surrender. He cried and cried, "Guan Yu, please spare me. Please remember all the things that I once did for you and let me go." Even though they were enemies, it was undeniable that Keokayo showed Guan Yu respect and appreciation at the time. Guan Yu, now seeing Keokayo break down in tears, did not know what to do. In this moment of confusion, Keokayo saw his opportunity and ran past Guan Yu's trap. King Gojin agrees to be a servant. Toward the end of the spring and autumn period, the kingdom of Yue was at war with Wu claiming victory not long after. To save his country, Gujin, the king of Yu, agreed to become one of King Fushai's servants. Over the next 10 years, Gujin pretended to be weak and feeble. He did Fushai's bidding. He cared for his horses, ate food normally served to peasants, and spent most of his days cleaning and sweeping. He was frequently ridiculed and physically mistreated, and his kingdom was subject to harsh taxes and requirements to surrender food and resources each year. But what Fushai didn't know was that even though Gujin pretended to be weak and even a little bit crazy, he never lost his ambition to rebuild his country. Over time, Fushai bought into the lie. He looked down on Gujin and saw that Gujin was no longer the man he used to be. Eventually, he allowed Gujin to return to his kingdom because of his health. When Gujin returned home, he didn't go back to being a normal king. Even though he wasn't required to wear servant clothes or sleep in the stable anymore, he continued doing so. He did it to remind himself of his determination and resolve to defeat Fushai. Gujin abandoned his comfortable bed to sleep on sticks. He forced himself to eat bile from a cow's gallbladder every day to painfully remind himself of the pain and suffering he was subjected to. He did this all in secret while waiting for the right opportunity to strike. Gojin ultimately found his opportunity and defeated Fushai's army in a surprise attack while Fushai was on a crusade against another kingdom. In Fushai's final moments, he begged for mercy, reminding Gujin that he once showed him mercy and allowed him to live. But Gujin responded, "It is because you accepted my surrender all those years ago that you are where you are today. Do you think that I would be so stupid as to accept your surrender? Only the truly brave will be capable of displaying weakness. When other people show us weakness, we should be cautious in case they have hidden motives." Today, the expression sleeping on firewood and eating gall is used to describe hard work and self-motivation in memory of Gojin's determination. Sun Tzu said everything that's bent will eventually be straightened. Like a leg that has been bent for too long, its natural movement is to be stretched out. Gujin knew this, and it became a source of strength for him. Showing weakness was nothing to be afraid of, and the stronger our foundations, the more we're not afraid of being seen as weak. Being able to be both strong and weak at the same time requires an extraordinary ability to control our own emotions. We might be able to learn the principles from Sun Tzu, but unless we have control over our emotions, we won't be able to apply them. No, it won't be easy. How does it feel when people ignore or misunderstand what you've created? What if they absolutely hate what you've done and try to drag your name in the mud? Would it be easy to smile gently and remain polite? Sun Tzu recognizes that emotions will drive how people see themselves and their situation. Their actions and choices on any particular day will vary depending on their mood. But if we're not able to handle our emotions, we won't be able to develop Sun Tzu's clarity of mind. Don't treat people all the same way. These days, when we say a person enjoys being in the spotlight, we're typically not giving them a compliment. We're implying that they're arrogant or that they possess a kind of unreasonable confidence. Sun Tzu thought it was the opposite. Being in the spotlight should feel humbling because you can't be who you want to be. We have to be measured and thoughtful about how we're perceived. While it's true we can't please everyone, it is equally true that we can't ignore perception either. There's a part of me that wants to believe that if I treat people with the right intentions, in a way that's true, honest, and authentic, maybe that will be enough. Others will appreciate the effort that I'm putting forward and meet me halfway. Sure, most of the time, in normal situations, it works fine, but this is rooted in my naivete. This is me not willing to concede that people are different and need to be treated differently. In the book, The 5 Love Languages, Gary Chapman outlines 5 ways that people express and experience love: receiving gifts, spending quality time together, receiving words of affirmation, receiving acts of service, and physical touch. Each of us prioritizes these 5 languages differently. Some might favor receiving gifts, while others might desire physical touch. The critical insight from Chapman is that unless we show others love in the way they want to receive it, they won't feel love. Did that sink in? If I view receiving gifts as an act of love, then I won't feel loved unless you give me gifts. You can spend as much time with me as you want, or tell me how much you love me all the time, but if I don't receive my gifts, I won't feel loved. Chapman was right about love, and he's also right about life. People crave connection from those that can speak, act, and touch them in a way they understand. The challenge is for you to resist the temptation of thinking that you already know. Our typical impulse is to believe that we have people figured out somehow, without taking the time to explore and listen. I don't mean that there won't be generalizations we could make about someone based on their history and experience. I'm a believer that humans are 30% nature and 70% nurture, but experience isn't everything. Learn to love yourself first. For some of us, though, the harder lesson is learning is that we need to treat ourselves with the same level of respect as others. Unfortunately, it's often the kindest and gentlest souls that seem to be most guilty of this. They don't set appropriate boundaries and limits because it feels confrontational. This isn't necessarily a criticism of who they are, but letting yourself be seen as overly weak is often an invitation to be taken advantage of. That's the cruel and twisted element of human nature. My fundamental belief is nobody wants to hurt another if they felt like they had a choice, but sometimes the situation compels them to do the opposite. It's like leaving valuables out in the open. We're enticing people to do something they might not otherwise do. You know those safety masks on an airplane that drop when there's a lack of oxygen? You're supposed to put yours on first before helping anyone else. Only when you know how to take care of yourself will you be able to help others. A 70-year-old woman was celebrating her birthday with her family and had come to town for a great feast. There were many dishes on the table, including Chinese broccoli, steamed cod in ginger soy sauce, and crispy-skinned fried chicken. When the fish arrived, her daughter promptly sliced the head off the fish and placed it on Grandma's plate. "Here you go, Mom," she said. "Your favorite." The grandma started weeping. "I am 70 years old today, and even now all you want me to eat is the fish head." Confused, her daughter asked, "But, Mom, don't you like eating fish head? You ate it all the time when we were growing up." "When you were growing up, we were poor. We didn't have any money to buy food, and we could barely afford to have the fish we had. I wanted all of you to have the fish, so I just ate the head. Now you have families of your own, and you still don't know what I was thinking." Grandma never learned that loving herself and expressing that love was not being selfish. She didn't need to wait until her family came to the realization. Their financial situation had changed, and they could afford to eat fish regularly. We can't expect others to be on the same page as us, and we can't assume that they have the perspective as we do. Part of effective communication is helping others to align with what we think and feel. If people attack you with savage criticism and insult your intelligence, teach them that it's not okay, in a way they're receptive to. Doing this artfully takes skill, a skill most of us never learn. It's easier to believe that we're good people and that others will show us respect because we're good people. To me, this isn't taking accountability for who we are. Rather, it's letting others make the choice for us. But it's not that we want to be strong so we don't get taken advantage of. We want to be strong so people will be drawn to us. Imagine that people discovered the location of an enchanted forest where mythical pink unicorns galloped with wild black stallions. Wouldn't you want to go see it? I would. People would come from far distances, regardless of cost or difficulty, because it would be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. What if that forest was you? What if you could display a quiet strength of leadership so enticing that others would be drawn to you? It's not as ridiculous as it sounds. These are the people that we admire today, the young actresses, the young entrepreneurs, and the marvelous creators that are out there in the wild. Some will feel discouraged. Discouraged because you feel a distance between who you are and those people. You don't have the same network, the same financial advantages, or maybe you feel like you've missed out on the better parts of your youth where you had more of a chance to create a difference. I'm here to tell you that where we start doesn't matter. What matters is how we choose to shape who we will become with the time we have left. Sure, some people are naturally more charismatic than others. They capture the room when they talk, but that's not most people. For most of us, it takes conscious and deliberate effort to shape who we are. What a cool job! Imagine that. As the designer, you can create any version of yourself that you like. You can make yourself edgy, provocative, traditional, or entertaining. It's seriously up to you. All it takes is for you to stop acting unconsciously out of habit. We can begin by asking ourselves questions like, how might we act differently to give people the impression that we want? How might we change the words we use to frame things in the right way? And believe me, it could have felt like as much of a struggle for those people as it does for you. We just don't know their stories. Nothing is effortless. Maybe we also have an advantage that those people don't have. We know what it's like to fail. We know what the cold, concrete pavement feels like against our skin, and we know what the sting of receiving constant rejection letters feels like. I can't guarantee that you'll get to where you aspire to, but take heart in knowing that, through learning to change, you will have lived a life worth living anyway. We're testing and changing our relationship with failure, and that is itself more valuable than anything anyone could give us at birth. Show others respect. I don't know much about you, but I'm willing to bet that what you need, besides the necessities of food and sleep, is something quite intangible, something that at times you value more than even your comfort. That something is respect. Everyone demands some form of respect, whether you're the highest paid CEO or the assistant to the janitor. We know when we don't have it, and we resent those who refuse to give it to us. No matter how small we think we are, or how little we think of ourselves, we'll still have in our reserve a small bastion of respect that we refuse to give up on. A small hidden area that we'll do everything in our power to try to protect because it's so tied to our identity. For me, it's my sense of work ethic. Say what you will about my work, but never say anything about the amount of time and thought that's gone into it. For you, it might be your relationships, your sense of pride, or maybe your values and belief system. Whatever it is, I'm sure it's different from mine, and honestly, if you told me, I might not even think that it was a big deal in the grand scheme of things. But that's the point. It never seems like a big deal to others because respect is utterly personal. It doesn't matter whether people agree with you on what that thing is. What matters is that it's tied to you. As leaders, we don't have to understand why they care about that thing or psychoanalyze them to figure out what caused them to care so much about it. Definitely don't do that. Just show them a little care and empathy by respecting the issues they seem to care about. A small person will act and speak out of their own self-interest without regard for others and still want some kind of prestige and admiration. But that's not how it works. We have to be able to genuinely listen to and respect others. Respect is a trait that matters as much today as it did in ancient China. The songs of Tang Taizong. Before Tang Taizong became emperor, he had a hobby of having artists turn tales of his victories into dance and song. When he received guests or had a presence with the emperor, he would have dancers perform these songs as a way of promoting himself and solidifying his strength at court. However, after he himself became the emperor of the Tang dynasty, he stopped. One of his advisers said, "You have so many victorious and glorious battles, many new victories that would be perfect for music. Why don't you turn these into music like you once did so? We might all be able to share in the celebration." Tang Taizong responded, "No. I fought hard to rise to the position I am in now, but so did these generals and soldiers who were once my enemies. Even though they did not win in battles against me, they are nevertheless great heroes and warriors in their own right. In fact, many of these champions serve in my government today as officials. If I were to make songs of these battles, what would they think? How would they feel?" They would not see them as songs of victory, but remember them as reminders of their defeat and embarrassment. They would believe that I did not take their counsel and advice seriously, creating a divide between us. So no, I will not turn these stories into songs. The adviser, hearing the rebuke from the emperor, lowered his head and wanted to hide, but the emperor continued. I respect them, and I respect the roles they once had in the previous dynasty. They are still champions in my eyes. The reaction I get the most when people hear this is that they're afraid of being taken advantage of. They don't want to be walked all over by the people around them, so they would rather wrong others than be the one who is wronged. There's a Chinese saying that choosing to be kind to others is choosing to be cruel to yourself. I completely understand this fear, so let's deepen our understanding of respect. Growing up, I didn't know how to keep the right boundaries. I thought showing people respect was to be pleasant. I thought it meant being agreeable and non-confrontational, so I became easygoing. Being easygoing became what defined my identity. It became so much a part of me that even when I tried rebelling in my 20s by speaking louder and more frequently, my rudeness kind of still didn't register. I thought that by being accommodating, I was showing people respect and exhibiting high emotional intelligence and empathy. But the truth was, I wasn't showing people respect at all. I didn't have high emotional intelligence. This was just me playing nice because I was shy. It was my emotional reaction to not quite knowing where the boundaries were. Respecting others doesn't mean treating them kindly and nicely. We're not their mothers. Nobody wants that from you. As a leader, as a friend, as a colleague, or as a parent, what people really want is a sense of connection. Build a sense of connection with them, and they'll feel respected. Sounds easy enough, but actually, what makes this so hard is that we're not setting out to make everyone our friend. We shouldn't, and can't, try to make everyone our friend. That wouldn't be constructive or realistic. What we're looking to develop is a connection to one another at an appropriate distance. We can't be too distant, but oddly enough, we also can't be too close. The need for an appropriately set boundary becomes clear when we assume any form of leadership role. If you treat your team members like brothers and sisters, you'll be surprised to find that one day they'll stop listening to you. They'll ignore your suggestions, and when you go to reprimand them in any way, they'll resent you for it. They'll think you've betrayed all the trust they've put in you. We tend to take advantage of the people that we love or are closest to. Consciously or unconsciously, we take them for granted. I'm sure you aren't an exception. Just think about how you treated your parents and siblings growing up. If we're angry and resentful after a long day's work, we take it out on our partners when we get home. But when we interact with someone we don't know well, we're proper and uptight. We show them more respect in case we offend them. Does that make any sense? A leader that is too close to their team will make poor decisions. They'll start to favor the most vocal team members or tiptoe around the serious issues because they want to keep the team on their side. When the relationship with our team is either too close or too distant, we're connected but unable to lead effectively. Now, you're probably thinking this all seems a bit abstract. Sure, we don't want to be too close or seem too far away, but what does that mean? How do we know? There's quite a simple and intuitive answer to this. We must be just close enough for them to feel like they're somebody in our eyes and not one step closer. When they're happy and celebrating, they should know that we're there celebrating with them. When they're feeling sad or depressed, they should also know that we're there to comfort them. We'll be there for them, but we won't spend every day with them or share every meal with them. We're only there in the moments that matter. Make it easy for others to like you. Isn't it peculiar how many people believe that being yourself is somehow enough? It's a kind of residue from our younger selves, when it didn't matter how we dressed and spoke, so long as we were being free and authentic. To these folks, I wish I could say, no, dude, that's not all there is. Sometimes we have to do things that don't make us feel good or like we're not being ourselves. During my days as a consultant, a large chunk of my work was to organize and facilitate client workshops. I would take 10 or 20 client executives away for a couple of days and have them run through activities together. Of course, my attitude to my role as a facilitator was always immaculately professional. Actually, to be honest, I was extremely uptight and controlling about it all. I wanted everything to be scripted and precisely prepared to deliver the greatest show for our clients. I wanted my team to be engaged and attentive at all times, to give the impression of a buttoned-up professional team. And then I met my colleague Pat. The first time I ran a workshop with Pat, I saw him sitting at the front of the room, cross-legged in full lotus pose, talking to the client. I thought to myself, how could he be so unprofessional? How could he be behaving so casually in front of all these executives, like he was at home in his living room? After a few silent breaths, I thought, maybe this guy has something that I don't. Maybe his ability to be so confident and at ease with himself is something that other people respect and that I need to learn from. As it turned out, this couldn't be further from the truth. Pat, for many reasons similar to this one, rubbed people the wrong way and didn't know how to work with many of our clients and colleagues. Whenever I think of why people shouldn't be too free, I always picture the moment of the full lotus pose. As much as we might not like it, whether we're accepted by others will always be influenced by how we look. While we don't have much control over our stature or physical aesthetic, and please don't go do something drastic to change this, we do have control over something much more important, our level of energy and behavior. There's an innate attractiveness that comes from how we present ourselves, the way we think, and how we treat ourselves and others. If you're handsome but have a repulsive attitude, it'll be hard for others to see you as a leader. It might even be hard for you to fit into social groups. Think of your stereotypical supermodel types. Even Confucius wrote about the importance of learning to control the way you present yourself, and he lived at a time before the invention of lipstick. We have to be able to look at ourselves through the eyes of others, he said. Notice how people respond to what you have to say. Be aware of what judgments people are making about you. Do people listen when you speak? Or do they find you annoying? But the answers to those questions aren't nearly as important as your willingness and intention to find the answers. Being aware of the perception you gave others and being in control enough to change it is what Confucius was getting at. Our level of energy is just as important as our looks, but it's often overlooked because it's not as easily observable. But trust me, plenty of lives have been ruined because people weren't able to stop complaining. Nothing scares away people, inspiration and creativity more than complaining, even when it's on the inside. We can fail, and we can fail often, but never let yourself believe that you're a failure. If we feel and look like a failure because we've lost a couple of battles, then we're just making it harder on ourselves to succeed going forward. If we focus too much on our struggle, we're closing ourselves to life. Instead, try telling yourself this: I enjoy failure. I enjoy my life. I believe in progress. And when you say it, be sure to mean it. It's a sad reality these days that people who dare to enjoy themselves are the weirdos that are more the exception than the norm. If you're willing to be a persevering weirdo like Sun Tzu, life will eventually find a way to reward you.